Ever since I was younger, people used to tell me I had poor communication skills. For the longest time, I believed I did as well. I was always the quiet and shy kid who would rarely talk, and when I did, you could hear the nervousness in my voice. Obviously, I've grown out of that by the time I came to college. There's still some poor communication skills that I still need work at, like speaking in front of a class and speaking in groups. Before I get into talking about my communication skills, I thought it would be nice to talk about my family. This picture above is of my dad and my brother and me. They both have been told they have good communicating skills, something I've been told I was bad at. They both talk more than anyone I've ever met. An ongoing joke I have with anyone who knows my dad is that he'll talk to a dead guy if he was next to one. And my brother's an excellent public speaker. So when people used to tell me I had poor communication skills at a young age, I thought so too. But what makes us have good communication skills? Public speaking, being well-spoken and outgoing. I've learned a lot in the last couple of months, and I've learned that those are just some components of communication, and until this year, I never realized I had some communication skills all along. Intrapersonal communication is communication within oneself. This is basically the voice in your head when you're thinking. So since I was a shy and quiet kid who didn't talk much like when I was little, my voice in my head was doing most of the talking. So, my intrapersonal communication was very good growing up. Even though intrapersonal communication works best when you're interacting with others, which I didn't do as a kid, still have a skill. Like, for example, when you're talking to somebody else and you're anticipating what they're going to say in your mind. Like, I didn't do that much as a kid, but I still had a skill. I was anticipating, not the talking. Listening was the other skill that I didn't realize was considered under communication. I knew it was a part of communication, but when you say that kid is a good communicator because he's listening great, it just doesn't sound right. But lately, I've realized that it's not just important to have a couple skills mastered and a couple not. It's important to have some of this, like each skill, a little bit of skill in each category of communication. Like, for example, you're a little bit good at listening, you're like a little good at communicating, good at public speaking, and all of them mesh into a good communicator. So being realistic of what I can and cannot do, I tried to find just a skill that I can improve over the last 8 weeks. Just one skill so I can improve in that skill in my overall communication. In order to narrow down my skills, I had to figure out what communication skills I was competent in. Communication competence is key to ever trying to improve your skills. It's like trying to get better at a sport. You have to know what aspect of the sport you're good at in order to focus on the stuff you need improving. That doesn't just go for sports. It goes for anything in life. Communication, sports. Like, how do you know what to improve unless you know what you're bad at? You know. So I did just that, and I narrowed it down to group and team skills. This is something that I always knew I was poor at. I was always the type to sit there and just observe, not really put my input into the group. I've even noticed it in my sports teams growing up. I was often called the silent leader of my football team. This is just another word in my mind for the kid who's good but doesn't talk enough to be a leader. After taking this into consideration, I realized I needed to change. Like, when I heard that it was my Nassau County championship game, when the announcer said that, I took that to heart because, I don't know, I always liked to be called a leader, but I feel like I got a lot that took away from me because I never really talked much and never really expressed myself, and that really held me back over the later years. So my change project's on group and team skills. Group and teamwork is important not just to me, but to everyone. When I get out of college and into the workforce, a very desirable skill to have is to work well with others and work well in groups. Group work affects us not only in jobs, but with our friends and family. My goal was not only to talk more in groups, but to provide new and original ideas. I chose this because I usually just sit in my group. When I do say something, it's usually just rewording the other one of my group's thoughts. Like, I have ideas and opinions, but I never know if they're good because I don't share them with the group. Like, how can you ever know if something's good if you just keep it in? And that's my problem. So, my project was simple. Every time I said something new or original in one of my groups, I would tally it off in my journal. Then I would reset the tallies every 2 weeks. Also, I created goals for every 2 weeks to achieve. The Final thing I did in my journal would write how I felt on that day or during the time of my group meetings to see if any factors that could affect any part of my project. So my results weren't all positive. The first 2 weeks I tallied off 6 new and original ideas. Week 3 and 4 I tallied off 3. Then week 5 and 6 I tallied off 5. Then my final 2 weeks I tallied off 12, which was my highest. Also, I made my goal for both week 1 and 2, and the final 2 weeks. The goals for the first 2 weeks was to say something new and original 4 times. Then the last 2 weeks was 10 times. So, my best were my first week, because I guess, I tried hard, and then my last week. I don't know. My results weren't progressively better, but stuff like this doesn't always work out. During my 8-week process, I noticed a few factors that contributed to my lack of participation in my groups. I was sick for 2 days, I had tests, and I had a couple of bad days. I realized that most of it occurred in time spans I had the least tallied off. This just shows that a lot can affect on how you communicate on that given day. This project helped my group and team skills a bit. It didn't make them into my strongest attribute that I had, but that wasn't the point of this project. See, the time frame for my change project may have been 8 weeks, but it's really for the rest of my life. It showed me that taking risks isn't going to kill you, and it brought awareness to my communication weaknesses so I can continue to improve at my own pace. These past couple of months in Comm 100, I've come to realize that communication skills are more than just talking, being able to translate your message easily to one another. I never had poor communication skills growing up. I just didn't develop some of the other components of communication, such as interpersonal communication, public speaking, and group and team skills. I also came to realize that my brother and my dad, who have good communication skills apparently, have a lot more problems with their communication skills than I do. No one has perfect communication skills, but with some practice and hard work, I can improve mine every year, and it will benefit me in my everyday life.